Okay. So I think I'm getting, all right. So I can just see a few faces as it turns. So for those of you who know me well, you know that I am really great with people and technology makes me go, so that's all right. I'm moving along, except that, there it is. Okay. All right. So as we get started, welcome. Welcome to Reclaim Your Vibrant Health. I'm Dr. Natasha Nelson. I feel like, everybody who's here has been personally invited, or there was a friend that invited you. So I feel like we are family and friends and connected in some way. So welcome and thank you for being here today. In the event, we will cover the 5 pillars of health. I'll break those down for you, talk about the program, talk about really specific 5 ways that you can help integrate and health and wellness and really increase your energy. And I have a bit of a bonus at the end for you too. So this is me, like, who am I? This is a picture of me. I'm a mother, beach volleyball player is how I ended up in Southern California. So I'm a chiropractor by trade, and I've been a chiropractor for almost 30 years now. And in private practice, I'd been in private practice for almost 20. And I also have a master's in spiritual psychology, because it was really understanding the body through chiropractic, but it was wanting to understand how the mind plays a role on the body and how our emotions affect our health, either positively or negatively. So I do a lot of public speaking. I put on workshops. These are just some of the places that I've spoken and that I've been grateful to present at. So I call myself a high performance educator and specialist. And really what that means is I integrate somatic, which means body, and the mental and the emotional health, whether it's in business, in sports, in life, wherever you are. That's what my role is, to help teach you on what you can do to improve your energy and feel better. I feel like, okay. So ideally, my mission is to help you achieve your goals without compromising your health. So that's what we're going to get into right now. So one of the first things is about recognizing. I'm a big advocate for definitions and words and making things make sense. And so when people talk about health, well, let's just start with that one. Like, what is it? How do you know when you have it? How do you know when it's gone? What is the outcome for health that you are actually trying to achieve? How do you know when you're there? And so I'm going to break it down with my definition that I'm working with. It doesn't have to be yours, but at least allows you to know what I am working with when it comes to health. I look at health as the energy required for your body to heal and repair and to fight infection and to function with effectively and efficiency, and do it in a way that is meant to be the way your body is designed to work. And so health really ultimately comes down to the energy that you have to do what you want, when you want to, and how you want to do it. Because when people say, oh, I don't feel healthy or my health is compromised, if you think about it, really what you're saying is you don't have the energy to do what it is you want to do, or your body doesn't have the energy to do what it needs to do. And really, when you think about the energy and our health, it's the life force in our body. It's what allows every cell to function and do its job. And so when our life force energy is compromised, that's when our body and our health and our life becomes exposed and decreases our ability to do what we're supposed to do. So we're compromised. And that's how we end up injured or disease, illnesses, anything like that. So we're going to start with going through the 5 pillars. And the first pillar is about physical health. And so if you have a piece of paper, take a few notes if you want. You don't need to. There's no quiz at the end. But just to help you keep track of which pillar is the one that affects you the most. So the first pillar about physical health is about your body knows. And what really that's highlighting is, well, what is your body telling you? Because our body talks to us all day, every day. It's giving us feedback about the external world. Our brain talks to our body talks to the brain. And so it's really about understanding the language. What is our body trying to tell us? What's it speaking to us? What is it trying to get our attention about? And so under the category of physical health is sleep. And sleep means good quality sleep to the point where you feel like you wake up in the morning energized and ready to go. Now, I don't mean you have to be so talkative and ready to go. And, from the moment you step on to, out of bed, but it's really feeling like you're able to get your day going, have the energy sustained through the day, and not peter out early. So when sleep is compromised, whether you're waking up in the middle of the night or difficulty falling asleep, those are already symptoms that your body is letting you know something is off. Your nervous system is off. And when the nervous system is off, there are multiple reasons for that. Oftentimes, if it's not a physical pain, it's an emotional issue. And I'll talk about that in the emotional component, but sleep is the first part. Posture, as a chiropractor, it's what I look at for everything. Our posture, our physical health, because our nervous system can't function properly when our posture is, whether it's head forward, hips tilted. When the nerves are compressed, they die off. And when they die off, it will interfere with your brain's ability to tell your body what to do. And it'll also interfere with your body communicating back to your brain on what it needs. And then, of course, exercise means exercise 5 days a week, at least a minimum of 30 minutes per day. And that's just the basics to keep all of the joints moving, keep the blood circulating through the organs, through the tissues at a most effective and efficient way. And ultimately, this all plays a role with our nervous system, and it's also our immune system, because we need those 3 parts and others to make sure that the immune system is able to kick in when it's supposed to, fight an infection, kick, bacteria, whatever is happening, without being just dragging on and on and on. So I want you to think about for a moment, how does your body communicate with you? And this is what, communication is going to be about symptoms. And symptoms are not always pain related, although they can be. Your body talks to us through pain. But symptoms can also be, like I said, if you're not sleeping well, it can be not digesting food properly. If you feel like you can't take a deep breath, if you feel like your immune system isn't functioning effectively, those are all the ways your body is already talking to you that you may not know how to interpret properly. So I want you to take your pencil, and on a scale from 0 to 10, I want you to just mark on there where you are from 0 to 10 with how well are you able to interpret the signs and signals and symptoms that your body is telling you. So how well do you interpret your body's communications with you from 0 to 10? And just put a little dot on the chart. As we move into the second pillar, I title this, What Are You Hungry For? This is about the chemical and the nutrition component of health. And this is everything that goes into your body requires energy for it to be processed, utilized, detoxed. So foods, supplements, medications, water, beauty products that we use, cleaning products, the air, all of it gets into our body and requires energy for your body to utilize it and process it and detox it. Food is really about how we nourish, how we fuel our body. Food is also used as medicine to heal the body. Food, though, however, becomes a substitute. So I want you to think about when you are eating, are you eating because you're bored? Are you eating to soothe yourself, to find comfort? Is food a substitute for love? Does it make you feel good and give you this like the warm companionship feeling that you long for? Because that's where we start to get ourselves in trouble, when we start using food for other reasons other than fuel and medicine as what food was meant to provide. So I want you, again, back to your wheel here. From 0 to 10, how are you in this area of your life? How is it working for you? Are you using food as fuel and medicine? Or are you using food to cope, to soothe, to feel good as a substitute for something else? So I'll give you a moment just to think about that and go, Quick way to know is when you're hungry, if somebody says, oh, I have an apple for you, you'd be like, oh my gosh, that sounds so great. And you'll eat the apple. If somebody says, oh, I have an apple, and you're like, that's not really what I want. It's not because you're physically hungry. You're emotionally hungry for something else. So that's kind of your hint. Everybody with me so far? Okay, good.
So
All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
So on a 0, 1 to 10, are you talking about, do we do it right or do we do it wrong on this one? Like if food is an emotional thing, are we 10 or are
It's really more of how do you feel you are doing? There's not really a right or wrong. So if I just said from 0 to 10, how are you doing in this area? That would be the question. Just how are you doing in that area?
so am I doing it for emotion? Then I'm really at a lower number then because I'm not doing it as a nutrition.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, so the third pillar as we move through is emotional health. And this is about becoming fiercely alive. And I love this cat picture because every time I start talking about emotional health, this is the feedback on most people's faces when they're like, I don't want to go there. And I'm saying, great, we're going to go there. So let's go together. I start with this one, which is how emotionally vulnerable are you willing to be? Now, this is a picture from it was from Burning Man. It's probably one of the most circulated pictures of what was made at the Burning Man event, probably 10 years ago now. Because ultimately, this is what our emotional health, if you think about it, it's how we feel, but it also connects to the inner child of what's really going on. And when those two are disconnected, how much we really want to connect with other people, but we feel like we're unable to. And this is the other face I get when I say, hey, feelings. And it's like, ew, there's those feelings. I don't want to talk about it. So if one of you have that face going on, I can see you and that's okay. I hope it makes you laugh and smile as you see this too. So feelings and emotions, one of the questions that I talk a lot about is because people go, what's the point of having them? Why even bother? We should just get rid of them. We shouldn't have to feel them. They suck. They get in the way. They cause problems. Well, they can. And this is where we start to learn like, oh, are emotions right or wrong? Are they good or bad? I mean, I don't know about you, but I grew up where emotions were told like, oh, emotions are bad. Don't have them. They're going to cause problems. And so I was like, okay, then I guess I just won't feel anything. And I was like, it's just easier to be this numb, robotic. I was very good at, let me go to school, let me go to work, let me play sports, very robotically. But really what I've come to understand is that our emotions are our guide. They guide us to let us know what our body needs and what's going on and what we need to pay attention to. So just like when we feel hungry, hunger is letting us know our body is craving nourishment. When we feel cold or too hot, our body is letting us know, hey, we need to change what we're wearing, change the temperature to let our body feel comfortable. Well, our emotions are the same. They are guiding us. They are telling us, hey, pay attention. There's something going on that needs for us to be able to look at, understand, and do something about. And feelings are a choice. But most people start to think, yes, I love to feel connected and feel joy and feel love and feel, at peace and harmony and as one, all the fun, loving feelings. We like to have all those. And then we would like to get rid of, the anger, jealousy, fear, you name it, terror, anything that's uncomfortable. We're like, yeah, I don't want to feel those. We love to feel the good ones. We want to get rid of the bad ones. And what I'm saying is they're not good or bad, and it's an all or nothing. At some point, you have to choose to be like, yeah, I'll feel them all, or I'll feel them, none of them. And that was the choice. I remember having to make that choice multiple times in my life, but really when my daughter was born and realized, oh my gosh, life being very robotic and, to-do lists, there's a place for that. But I was missing out on so much of life and connecting with people, because connection is going to be the feeling that you get when you're willing to open up and share everything. And so when you understand the role of feelings and our emotional health, you start to go, oh, how do we use this to our advantage? Well, there's a hint. Part of it is it's your intuition, because your intuition is your feelings. It's the feeling that you get. It's a gut feeling, or it's the feeling of the hair on the back of your neck, or something is letting you know something doesn't feel right. That's why we use those words. It doesn't feel right. So it's a feeling. And that's why learning how to feel all your feelings is part of what emotional health is. Because ultimately, the amount of energy it takes to not feel, to push everything down, that is going to cost you energy somewhere. It takes a lot of energy and effort to be like, yeah, I don't want to feel guilty. I don't want to feel ashamed. I don't want to feel embarrassed or humiliated. And when you are suppressing those feelings, it's like holding like the bouncy like rubber balls in a pool, and you're trying to hold the ball underwater. It takes a lot of effort and energy that your body would prefer to use that energy somewhere else. So you start to go, well, how do you use your feelings to your advantage? What does that really mean? It means leaning into it and interpreting them, discerning them. What is the meaning behind it? So just how your physical sensations, like I said, when you feel hungry, you don't get mad at hunger. You're just like, oh, I'm hungry. Well, let me go find what I need to fuel and nourish my body. Great. Well, when other emotions come up, I want you to think about having the same mindset, which is don't get mad at it. Don't try to get rid of it. Try to understand it. Because ultimately, it comes down to if we need to feel our feelings, or our body will feel them for us. Because suppressing the energy of the emotions is the definition, energy and motion. So all the emotions, that the energy of it, if we're not going to let it flow through us and out, it's going to go inward and get stuck. And every emotion has an affinity for different parts of the body, kind of gets housed. It kind of starts to tighten certain muscles, which will affect the joints. It affects the blood flow. It affects the nerves, which is how we end up with injuries and illnesses and symptoms in very specific parts of the body. So our body can look, if you look at it like the dashboard in your car, our body is just telling us, hey, look here, check engine, put gas, put oil, check here, check here. And so I wanted to take a moment to hear from you what emotions may feel challenging to interpret, which emotions may be difficult for you to feel, where when they come up, you're like, no, I want to get rid of it. I don't like it. I don't know what to do with it. So if you're open to just sharing, I want to take a moment and I have some emotions we'll talk about, but I just want to hear from you. Which ones would you like to understand more, how to interpret and how to experience it? Anybody willing to unmute yourself and share?
I will. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Nancy, is that you?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
I have some anger at some siblings,
Mhm.
and I have a great deal of sadness dealing with my mom leaving my home here, and
Okay.
we moved her out, and that's a tough one.
Okay. So thank you for, go ahead and put yourself back on mute while I answer. Okay. Thank you for sharing that and being honest and open. So
Right about.
anger, I want you to think about the feelings of anger, and we'll, as I help you understand how to process that. Anger shows up when boundaries have been broken. And anger will show up when those boundaries have been broken, yes, by other people or from ourselves. So anger is there to let you know that a boundary has been broken. What anger is guiding you towards is saying, hey, some rule in your life has been violated. And sometimes we don't know that a rule has been violated or a boundary has been broken until we feel it. Because sometimes what it is, hey, I didn't know I needed to set the boundary. I didn't know I had to talk about it. I didn't even know I needed to share it. But anger is letting you know, yes, it's there and a rule needs to be upheld or put in place. Because that's sometimes what things about boundary, which is we tend to have an idea of what we want for boundaries, but we tend to have a hard time upholding them because there are consequences that go with that can feel really uncomfortable. So when that you were talking about with anger that is right in alignment is, you said sadness. Grief is the other part of anger. If we dig deeper below grief, below anger, and you get to grief. Grief is a sadness. Grief is loss. And people think about loss from yes, it's a loss of a person or our possessions, but it's also a loss of feeling safe. It's a loss of a sense of security. It can feel like it's a loss of community or connection. It can feel like it's a loss of values. So grief can show up to let you know that there is a loss that needs to be acknowledged, that something has changed. And part of what that is, so the reason I wanted to I'm glad that you brought these both up because these are the ones I was going to talk about today, which is how anger will show up to let us know boundaries have been broken, how grief shows up to let us know that there's been a loss. It could be a loss of when a boundary has been broken of a friendship, a relationship, something. And so this is the process of how to use emotions to your benefit. Instead of trying to hide from them, you start to just go through it and go, well, let me identify what I feel. Because every emotion has a skill that's attached to it that we either need to learn or we need to get better at. And so once you start to understand the feeling and put a name to it, then you can start to understand, well, what is it that I need? Then you start to uncover what's going on. So is that helpful for you, Nancy? I want to at least give me a thumbs up because I can see you. Okay, good, good. So I want to call on Stephen because I saw that you had unmuted yourself. So I want to see if you still feel like sharing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fear.
Fear. Okay. Fear ultimately is at the root of just about every emotion. If we dig deep enough, fear is there. And fear lets us know, and it's guiding us to, hey, maybe we need more information before we take another step. Fear lets us know, hey, maybe we're just feeling a little nervous about what we're going to do. Fear is very broad. So I would ask you, is there a way to identify fear a little bit differently? Is there another word that you would put besides fear? Because it's so broad and so general, that can you identify it a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I would say for me, doubt is for specifically self-doubt.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Self-doubt, doubt will show up to let us know that there's something that we do not believe in ourselves about what we are doing. And when you start to look at the action you're wanting to take or something that you want to do, a task, an item, the doubt that shows up can be beneficial when you look at it and say, okay, well, have I prepared? Like you start with, do I know what I'm doing? Do I know what I want to do? But it's also guiding you to maybe get clarity on, well, what's the outcome that I'm trying to get with this action or task? Because sometimes doubt is being unclear of the outcome you're trying to get or unclear of the steps to get there. It can be lack of clarity about why you're doing it. What is the point of why you are taking this action and why you're there? Because the doubt will help guide you to identify and get clear on, well, what are the skills or the gifts or the talents that you are trying to bring to this situation? What parts of you, who you deeply are you bringing to that scenario, and that situation, whatever the it is? And so doubt is letting you know that you may not be really clear on what part of you are bringing and why you are bringing it. Because once you get clear on the what and the why, it's no longer a sense of doubt. You might feel nervous, we all feel nervous, okay. But the doubt is going to be when you feel clear about what you're doing and why you're doing it to the point where you love what you are doing and why you are doing it, the doubt will settle. And so that's what the doubt is there to let you know, that there's something that you have not deeply connected to with enough to feel deeply, lovingly inspired by it. Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Good, good. All right. So I'm going to keep going here, but we can come back after. I just want to make sure to, with time here. So, but this is how you start the process of feeling your feelings so your body doesn't absorb it and feel them for you, which is just this. You start to connect with what you feel. And there is a logical process with each emotion to get to the root of what to do with it. And this is where the question is, are you willing to be emotionally honest with yourself and with others. Because your ability to solve the problem is directly proportional to how honest you're willing to be. So here we are, back to our scale from 0 to 10. How emotional, how honest are you willing to be, at least with yourself first, before with others? So how emotionally vulnerable are you willing to be from 0 to 10? You're like, oh, this is where I start to see like people getting a little like, I don't like this question. I don't like this one. That's okay. We've all been there. I've been there too. As we move through the pillars, pillar of health number 4 is time to level up. And what that really means is your ability to solve the emotional problem, or you're going to end up having to cope. And it's how do you deal with an uncomfortable situation, an event, or circumstance? Because when life happens, and something starts to feel really uncomfortable emotionally, you have a choice. If you don't like what you feel and you don't know what to do with it, this is where the mind goes, okay, well, I'll find a way to avoid it, or I'll just distract myself from it. I'll find a way to numb it, and I'll just disconnect, and I'll find something else to do instead. And this is where it ties into why I brought up, the food as nutrition, and food comes into place here. Because when we find ourselves in difficult situations, because life is that, there's no way to avoid discomfort and uncomfortable and hard things of life. So you're either going to numb yourself and avoid it, or you're going to use that discomfort as the opportunity to learn a new skill. Just like I did with, oh, that's about boundaries. Oh, okay. Let me learn how to set boundaries and uphold boundaries. Or, oh, what's the skill? How can I really identify my gifts and my talents and use them well? So every discomfort that we have goes through this process that if you're willing to feel it, you'll identify the skill. And so our feelings and emotions are there to help us level up in whatever skill we need to learn. Because if we don't learn the skill and we don't want to level up, the mind cannot allow us to sit in an uncomfortable situation. It won't let us sit there. And so it'll find any way to cope and how to survive something difficult. And this is where all the world of addictions show up. So I wrote some here. These are some of the common ones. It's not all of them. But this is where we start to develop unhealthy behaviors to cope, whether it's food, drugs, alcohol. Those are the obvious easy ones, shopping, porn, gambling. But this is where the world of addictions that I work with when I'm working with clients is, working is very healthy and important, and we work. But if you start using work as an excuse to not go home because you don't want to deal with what's at home, well, it starts to fall into a different category. You're starting to avoid something. So it's the intention below the surface. Some people like to, they lash out and they react and they're bullies. And, there's a dopamine hit that comes with that. That when we're not feeling good about something, if we lash out and behave badly and we get a dopamine hit, we're like, oh, that felt good. We can become addicted to the feeling of that. And then this is where the world of the cycle of anxiety, depression, and addiction show up. So addiction can be anything. And I use this picture with me and sugar. For those of you who've known me long enough, there was a time where I could, this bag of sugar from Costco, I would be able to consume it probably in about 6 to 8 weeks because of the amount of sugar I was eating and drinking in my coffee and wanting, because it It felt good, it tastes good, and it just helped me avoid and distract from other things. And especially when my mom was sick, when I was her caregiver and I was just trying to survive. And I was drinking 4 to 5 cups of coffee a day. Each cup of coffee would have 3 to 4 spoons of sugar in it. And it's, you know, it was survival at the time. And that's okay until after she passed. And I realized it was time to clean up not just my home, but the emotions and then my diet. I had to clean up the sugar. I realized, oh, I was consuming about 120 grams of sugar a day, you know, and really we should be consuming about 15 to 20. But addiction can be anything. Anxiety shows up when we start to have all of these uncomfortable feelings, but we don't like them and we don't know what to do with them. So we start creating rules and systems in our life to preemptively trying to avoid them. So it's kind of like this idea of, well, if I can plan ahead, I can avoid something bad. Or if I plan ahead, I can avoid something feeling uncomfortable later. Well, anxiety is when we start to create all of this, oh my gosh, if I do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, trying to fill our time, our day, taking our energy, trying to solve problems that aren't really there yet as a way to try to avoid anything uncomfortable. So there's planning ahead and there's trying to preemptively plan too far in advance. That's anxiety. That's where the mind is spinning. Depression shows up as part of the past, where our mind is stuck in the past. Something that we did, something that happened. We wish that we were somehow better or smarter or stronger or more brave or more courageous, because we look at something in the past and think that if we could have been different, we could have avoided it or made it better or made it less painful. So this triad goes together because anxiety is about how can we try to prevent pain in the future, any discomfort that we may feel in the future, we want to avoid it. Depression is about being stuck in the past, pain in the past. How can we get rid of the past? We can't, but we can get stuck in pretending that if we were somehow different, we could have avoided pain in the past. And addiction is about in current time, which is trying to avoid what's uncomfortable in current time. So most people don't realize that if you experience one of these three, you experience all three on some level, not equally, not at the same level, not at the same time, but there's this cycle that goes through the addiction, depression, and anxiety mind. So ultimately, when it comes to leveling up and the mental pillar of health, it's really about how willing are you to take ownership and accountability and responsibility for your feelings, for your triggers, for your upset. And this is not about blame. It's not about making you feel guilty. It's not about shame. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about giving you a direction on how to deal with the mental pillar of health. And so when I'm working with clients and I'm working with this component of health, this is how I address mental health. I have a team of the PhDs and everybody that I refer to for when there's emotional mental breaks, which can be whether it's bipolar, schizophrenia, all those things, I refer out. That is not my wheelhouse of mental health. I deal with the addiction, depression, anxiety, and looking at this aspect of the mental health. So this is where I want you to, from 0 to 10, put your dot on the wheel of how willing are you to learn the skill, take accountability and responsibility for your feelings, for how you cope, or are you learning a new skill? and being willing to learn something new. Because ultimately, that's where the mental health comes from, is our mind wants to learn how to do something new to move us forward. And the mind says, well, if you're not going to learn something new to solve the problem, then we'll find some unhealthy behavior to cope, because that's the only way it knows how to survive and cope with what's uncomfortable. All right, everybody have a dot? Here we go. Fifth pillar. It's the best one. It's my favorite. It's really the spiritual health, which is, who are you becoming? And the whole wheel comes to this of, it's about connection. It's about connection with yourself, to something bigger. It ultimately means, do you like who you are? Do you like what you are, how you are, the way you are? And I put this picture, this is the book that I wrote. Let's see, I published it in 2019. So I started writing it in 2017 and 18 when my mom was sick. And it was the times that I had to do the deepest emotional dive into who I am, connection with my mom, where I've been, life. And what this book, in publishing it and really writing it for me, came down to is dissecting all the parts of who I am and recognizing all the parts that I did not like before, reconciling them and getting to the place where I'm like, man, I like who I am. I like where I've been. I like the journey of my life. Doesn't mean it's perfect. It just means I've accepted it and I like it. And, I share this is my mom, my dad, because for me growing up, I always felt split. I grew up with my mom and my parents divorced from a chaotic home. And, I grew up feeling like, okay, I'm half white and I'm half black and I'm supposed to choose one side or choose the other. And anytime somebody asked me a question where I felt like I had to choose one side or the other, I felt like I was not being authentic to myself. I felt like I was having to diminish half of me in order to accept or feel accepted and feel loved. And part of that disconnection with myself was what created so much angst inside of me that really affected my ability to love who I am and where I've been. So part of the spiritual component of health is authentic self-expression, which is being able to take all of your gifts and your talents and your skills and life experiences, and you take all of those of who you are and you use them in some way. And that's how I came up with my, my logo now, which is a zebra, because my half black and half white self that used to feel very conflicted, finally being able to line those all up and aligning them with my actions and core values. And that's where that sense of self-worth and self-respect and self-love is going to come from. And that's where the spiritual health and what's going on of who we are becoming, what this plays a role. So in this pillar, I want you to, from 0 to 10, how are you doing with using your unique gifts, your talents, your skills, and using them in a way that gives you a sense of purpose and fulfillment? Are you able to take all of who you are and authentically use it in some way that makes you feel like you really like who you are, where you've been, where you're going, who you've become, and all of those things that are a part of you, from 0 to 10. So now as you look at your wheel, you should have a dot in each of those categories. Those are the 5: physical, chemical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Now, if you take a moment, I want you to draw a circle and connect all those dots. And you'll start to see where your circle, if it's not nice and, think of the tires of the car, that if they are flat, if you got a flat tire, the whole car is going to be lopsided, and it's going to affect the brakes, the alignment, everything in the car. Well, that's very much how it affects your body too. When any pillar that is low, and by low, I mean anything less than an 8. Anything that's less than an 8 means your body has to work really hard to be effective, to be efficient in its energy. And anywhere that you are taking energy in any pillar of health, it's going to diminish the energy at the cellular level for your body to function, for you to sleep, for your immune system to be ready to go, for your body to heal and repair any injuries that happen or illnesses that are showing up. So you don't need to share it, but I just want you to think about 8 is the minimum that you want to have in every pillar for your body to function well. Because at the root of every illness, injury, and disease is the loss of that energy. But there's hope, because I have been there and I see you and I get you and I know how to help you. Because this is where it's really time to rejuvenate and restore and revitalize your health. And it's really about, this is how to reclaim your vibrant health, which is why I started with defining what health is. You have to have a definition to know where you're going, what you're working on, and what's not working. And so I've created a complete health and wellness restoration program. And it's a program designed to empower you with your body and your health, because once you know where the pillar of health is compromised, you can ask your doctor better questions, which means you'll get better care and you are not going to be susceptible to the myths and propaganda or whatever you want to call it, and about the mind-body connection. The program of health that I have created, it helps save and reduce healthcare costs because you know what you're doing. You have better discernment and clarity of your body's needs, and you can identify them with clarity and ask for help when you need them. But really, it's about how to reduce your risk of injuries and illness and disease. And it helps to improve your professional and personal relationships, because you are able to connect with people and have conversations about anything without feeling afraid to, without feeling too scared to show up. And what this does is it improves your confidence and your courage in yourself. So my 5-week program, it's 5 consecutive weeks. The next cohort's going to start February 15th. And it's a 1 hour, an hour and 15 semi-private coaching and instruction. Also includes a 1-to-1 health personal assessment with me, so we can get specific on where your health is compromised, where your body's energy is leaking, which of those 5 pillars is at the top, and put them in order. So the Reclaim Your Vibrant Health, for the 5 weeks of the group coaching, as well as the 1 personal session with me for the hour, your investment is $495. But because you were here and because you joined me and spent time with me today, it's $397 for you. And it will include an additional 6th week of the cohort, which will just be a Q&A and personally making sure that I am helping you get clarity on your health, your issues. And if you have upcoming doctor's appointments, things like that, I can guide you on what to ask, how to go through your lab work, how to make sure you're getting what you need done properly. And so this is how to reclaim your vibrant health. It's 100% guaranteed, because I'm that confident that I can help you. I am really confident that I can help what's going on with you. So this is the QR code. It takes you to the registration landing page if this is something you would like to do. Like I said, class begins February 15th, which is 3 weeks from today. It'll be on Saturday mornings for about an hour to an hour and a quarter. This is my cell phone and my email. You can reach out to me if you have questions. I want to take some time. I wanted to make sure to have Q&A time. So I'm going to leave this up, but I want to take any questions about any of the 5 pillars of health, about the program, about what I do, or about any issues that you may be having, or about today, because I'd like to hear feedback. So please share with me. I want to hear from you. I want to know you're there. and what's going on. Anybody want to go first? Don't make me call on you. Just kidding.
Can you touch base a little bit on resentment?
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
Resentment shows up when we feel like we have been wronged, that something is unfair, and we are trying to recalibrate to make something feel fair. So resentment is going to show up trying to get us to take action to balance the scales. So resentment makes us want to, out of revenge, do something to balance the scales. When we feel like there has been a wrong that we want to make right, resentment is letting us know. So when we are feeling resentment, the skill to go in is to understand and have better clarity about why we are so angry. Sometimes it's really acknowledging that what we are angry about is something that we actually can't do anything about. And when we feel powerless about the situation that we are in or the circumstance that we are in. And when we feel powerless, that can feel so detrimental to the mind that the mind will be like, well, if we try to right the wrong, if we try to take revenge, if we try to do something, maybe it'll help us feel better about feeling powerless. Ultimately, it won't, but in the moment, it can feel like it will make you feel better. So that's what resentment is sharing and letting you know there's something that you may be feeling really powerless about and feeling angry about it. And when you can't change it, resentment feels like, well, I'm going to try to force change or force something else to try to make it feel better in the moment. Does that make sense? Does that help? Okay, you can just give me a thumbs up. That's okay. Yeah. All right, good. Thank you for that. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other emotion that you would like to share or you would like some coaching on about what the meaning or what the skill is, or about anxiety, depression, addiction? Anybody else like to ask a question or get some coaching here? Anita, you've unmuted yourself. Yes.
I did. So the vulnerability is here now.
Yes, it is. But this is, this is, I just want to acknowledge you for that. So you are welcome here. Okay.
So I do a lot of emotional eating. I've done it all my life for I don't know whether it's inbred in me or, I was led to it and then I just kept going or what it is. The only time that I have been in control of my food is when I know that I'm angry or upset. And instead of going to the kitchen, I would turn around and go outside the front door and take a walk. And then I overcame that eating emotion or that need to eat and started exercising instead of eating. So I'm wondering I obviously redirected my feelings. So, I mean, is that a solution? Is there other solutions other than that to rectify, emotional eating is what it's called. So
Yeah.
label it for what it is.
Yeah, it is. It is emotional eating. And so I appreciate your vulnerable share here and ask, because food is actually one of the top ways people cope and soothe, and don't realize it. And so it's not something you're born with, but it is installed early on, where we can be, as kids, when we fall and get hurt and a parent or an adult says, oh, well, here's a popsicle, here's a cookie, here's something.
Yeah.
Make it feel better. My experience, and I relate with that very much, when I was 12 and my grandmother passed away and my mom sent me on a plane to go to Europe by myself, and I was terrified. And the flight attendant gave me all the food and drink that I want. I started to realize, oh my gosh, if I'm eating, then I don't feel pain.
Mm-hmm.
And if I eat, then I can feel numb. And
Right.
it took me decades to really understand that too. So for you, one of the things to understand is if you can put a pause from what you feel to instead of trying to make the feeling go away, sit in the feeling.
Ooh.
Oh, this is the hard part. I know.
I said, ooh.
Oh, I know. Sitting in the discomfort. And now sitting in it doesn't mean staying in it, and building a home there and hanging out there forever.
Right.
Sitting in it means, can you sit there and feel uncomfortable long enough to feel and identify what you are feeling? So in the beginning, it may feel like, oh my God, that's going to take me so long. I don't want to sit here for hours. But as you do this consistently, and this is how all of it works, is that you'll start to get better at identifying the words and the feelings. So if you sit there and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I feel bored.
Mhm.
Bored. Okay, bored. Oh, and you're like, well, I don't need to eat. Okay, I don't really have to work out if I'm feeling bored. Bored just means that. Like, I don't like anything that I'm supposed to do. I can't think of anything to do. But if you sit and feel bored long enough, your mind will start to get creative about something. And instead of interrupting that creative process with food or working out, which if you're going to go work out, that's great. If you're going to eat something healthy, that's great. But if you go and give yourself a moment to feel about whatever the feeling is, your mind will start to go, hey, I'm bored. Okay, maybe I can think of something creative that's using my creative gifts to do.
Mhm.
So as I say that, is there a feeling or emotion that you can identify now that comes up that makes you want to use food to get rid of?
Yeah, sure. Frustration or anger.
Okay, so I spoke about anger, so I won't go, I'll let you use that. Frustration shows up when we don't know what to do or we don't know how to do it.
Mhm.
And so frustration is just that. It's letting you know there's something that you want to do, but you don't know how. Okay, well, good. Then it's guiding you to maybe read a book on how, watch a video, find out more, get more information. Or the how part is, well, you got to try it and get feedback on what doesn't work. Oh, okay, let me try it, which means you have to feel uncomfortable trying something new. Or just doing something that is a stretch beyond what you've done before.
Yeah.
And the name of the game is, how uncomfortable are you willing to feel? Because if you're willing to feel uncomfortable, great, you'll figure out how to solve it instead of soothe it and get rid of it.
Hmm. Why does food soothe us anyway? I mean, it's just an
It's a learned behavior. We learned it really, really in childhood that somehow feeling bad doesn't feel good. So we're going to try to get rid of what doesn't feel good with any means possible. And food is just the easiest one. So it's the one that's usually available first.
So to add on to what I just said and to connect with what you said earlier about being addicted to sugar, that's a whole nother ball of wax that I need to
Yes.
figure out and how to get
Yes.
unaddicted to sugar.
Yeah, I talk about, so when I do my program with the 5 pillars, the 5 weeks is the 5 pillars. So each week we will go and do a deep dive on each of those 5 pillars. So the second week is specifically on nutrition and specifically on sugar. I spend half of that segment talking about how to break the sugar habit. What's going on in your body with hormones, with cravings, with illness, with inflammation, because all of those things will trigger the mind and the sugar component on how to do that. So yeah, I talk about that in the 5 pillars on week 2 about chemical and nutrition.
Do
But
you
yeah,
have the time of day that you're going to have this session? Because I have things on Saturday, so I'm just
it's
wondering.
going to be, it's at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 9
Nine.
to 10:15-ish. If it's something you want to do, I'm also looking at, if there's enough people that want to do an evening, I will do a Wednesday evening time. So evening being, 5:30, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific time.
And one last question about that. Is it considered medical if we do we need to get like a doctor's order to make it medical necessity to take your class, to have it part of?
No, you can just sign up and register, but since I am a doctor, you can actually, I can give you a receipt and you can submit it to your insurance and get reimbursed for it.
Okay, great.
Yes,
you.
you're welcome. Anybody else like to share? I have a few minutes here. Anybody else have a question? Something they'd like more information of? Well, that's my cell phone. Feel free, most of you have it anyways. Feel free to text me or email. But I'd love to be able to connect with you. So as you take all this information in, don't hesitate to reach out if you're like, if you get stuck on something or want to know something. I also have a PDF of emotion feeling words. So if it's something that you would like to have to develop your vocabulary, feel free to email me and I will get that to you. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here and showing up today, this morning, and taking the time. And I'm so proud of you and acknowledge each of you for taking the time to learn, and just grateful for allowing me to be here, because when I get to talk and share my gifts and my talents and the skills and the knowledge that I have, you get to help me feel more connected and inspired with my work and sharing it. So whether you take the course or not, it's just being here. I'm grateful for you. So thank you. So I'll stick around for a little bit, but if you need to go, I get it. And I look forward to seeing everybody. Oh, I'm getting feedback.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks,
thank
Natasha.
Thank
Thank
you, Nancy.
you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you,
you so much.
Anita. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Okay.
Get some rest, Steve.
You
Bye.
too.